Yeah, hello all. We are going to see about virtual networks in this demo session. First, what is a virtual network? Virtual network is like a building block of resources. Virtual network is something which we use to create and then assign all our resources to be part of that virtual network. By doing that, we can protect them from being accessed by the external resources or the outer world. Let's say a company has a team. It is a HR team. They want to create a set of resources, and they want to make sure that those resources are accessible only by their team members. This can be done by creating a virtual network and providing access to that virtual network only to their team. So the access to the external world is uh, prohibited, right? So within virtual network, we will create something called subnet. So what is subnet? So when we create virtual network, right, we assign IP addresses. These IP addresses will be assigned to the different devices and different applications that we work with within this virtual network. So the concept of subnet is nothing but just breaking your virtual network into multiple portions. Let's say if you have multiple subnets, it will enable you to work effectively. Let's say you have a company and as part of your team you are having like multiple teams like front end team, like back end team, and then web tier team. So all the team will have their own services, correct? So in this case, what will happen if you are able to create different subnets and create your respective services under these subnet? Let's say the web end applications will belong to a particular subnet, front end application will belong to a particular subnet, our web tier application will belong to a particular subnet. So in this case, in case of any issues or any faults, right, by seeing the IP address range, you would be able to easily identify. Okay, so this IP address range belongs to my front end system or front end application. So it will enable you to identify the faults easily. So that's the main need of creating subnets within virtual network. Okay, so now I'm going to explain how we are going to create virtual network and how to create subnet, then how to create an Azure resource and assign it to be part of this virtual network. Like this, I'm going to create two virtual networks with two Azure resources. And also I'm going to show you how we can communicate between these two virtual networks. Let's say you have a company XYZ, you have HR team and IT team. Let's say each team has its own virtual network, and at some point they have to work together for business purpose. So in that case, the virtual network of HR team should be able to access the virtual network of IT team, correct? So the connection needs to be established. So how this can be done? This can be done through a process called peering. It is called a VNet peering or virtual network peering. So how peering happens? Peering is nothing but a connectivity that is established through the Microsoft backbone network or Microsoft Edge. It is mainly called as Microsoft backbone network. It is Microsoft's own connectivity, and it doesn't require internet connection or anything. So the latency is very less, and the connection is very effective. So when we are using peering, the resources, the connectivity happens very faster with very less latency. Okay. So now let's jump into the demo session. First, I'm going to create. Uh, Let me go step by step. First, I'm going to create a resource group. Okay, I'm going to create this resource group under the list US3. Okay, next, I'm going to review and create. Okay, resource group has been created. So now I'm going to create my first virtual network. So if you're new, if you're accessing this virtual network first time, you can search here. So you can search for virtual. So it will come. You can select virtual networks, and I'm going to create a new virtual network. So I'm selecting the just created resource group. I'm going to give this virtual network a name as, let's say, this is HR hyphen VNet 1. So region automatically has taken West US3. So next IP addresses. Okay, so IP address. So I said right in the IP address section only we will be creating this subnet. So I'm going to define my own IP address range. So, okay, in this case, okay, so let me just delete this. So I'm giving my IPv4 address space 10.0.0.0/16. So I'm going to create my subnet. So this subnet is the one where I will be assigning my newly created resource, that is the virtual machine. So I'm going to give a subnet. So whenever we are giving these names, I think it would be good to give a proper naming convention. So it would be easy for you or other resources, I mean to say other people working in the project, to track and follow this exactly. Yeah. So I'm going to give this name as maybe VNet, VNet1 hyphen subnet, so SNet. So this is going to be for a virtual machine. So I'm giving this VM. I'm going to give address range here 10.0.0.0/24. Okay, I'm going to add. Okay, so the next step is security. Security, I'm just leaving everything to default. Tags. Final step is review and create. So it is running. Yeah, it is running validation. Okay, so validation has passed. I'm clicking on create. So the first virtual network has been created along with the subnet. So the next step is to create a new virtual machine and add it to this virtual network. Okay, so let this create. It will take a few seconds. Okay, let this get deployed in the backend. Let me go to home. Again, if it is first time, you have to search here for virtual machines. When if you have already accessed it, you should be able to find it under these recently accessed services. So if it's first time, you have to search here and pick the virtual machine. I'm going to create a new virtual machine. Same resource group I'm going with. I'm going to give the virtual machine name here as let's say it's for dev-vm1. So automatically it has picked corresponding vestUS 3. So there will be a lot of options to be configured. So here availability options. This is like how you want to take backup of your virtual machine. I'm just going with default option, being a demo session. Security type is standard. Image. Okay, image is nothing. It's an important thing. It's nothing but which virtual machine you want to choose and deploy. So if, as you see, you have a lot of options like you have Linux, you have Ubuntu. So I'm going with our Windows OS based virtual machine. Okay. So I selected that image. So this image corresponds to your operating system. Okay. Right. So in the size, you have a lot of options to create like basically different configurations. So what should be your virtual CPU, vCPU, what should be your RAM size, all those things. So I'm going with the low configuration device, low configuration option. You have to give a proper username and password. So I'm doing that. So this username and password only we will use to log into that virtual machine. Okay. So yeah, so public inbound ports. As of now, it is allow selected ports. Let it be, and allowed port is 3389, like RDP 3389. So this is the port which corresponds to that remote desktop connection. So using this, we can connect it from our local system itself, provided we have the internet, or we can connect it from the other virtual networks VM when the peering is done. Anyway, I'll show you the steps. For now, let's go with this option. Next, we have to create disks. Please remember, whenever your virtual machine is created, your disk will also be created along with it. So we have the option to select whichever disk we want to go for. I'm going with the low configurable one, standard hard disk drive. So here is this option, delete VM, automatically enabled. It says that when you are deleting the VM, the disk also will get deleted automatically. So I'm fine with that option. So encryption type, I'm not worried about this, just going with this default. So next, networking. So this is a place where we will link this virtual machine to the respective virtual network. So as you see, I have only one virtual network, so it has come automatically. If you have multiple virtual networks, you'll have to select the corresponding one which you want to create this or link this VM to. So I'm going to, again, I have only one subnet, right? So that's come automatically. Okay, so there is something called public IP. So let this, you have option to create this public IP, or you can set it to none. So if you set it to none, right, what happens? This virtual machine will not have a public IP. It will have only a private IP. The default option is to have this public IP. So I'm just going with default option. So in this case, what will happen? You will have two IP addresses generated, public IP and the private IP. So I'm going with default IP. Default option, public IP. So network security group. Again, this I'll explain in the upcoming topics or upcoming session. So as of now, the default basic I'm going with. Okay. So allow selected ports. Yeah. All fine. So I'm going to next management. So this has got some option. It says that it is protected. I mean, it means that this virtual machine we are going to create, right? It is protected with basic Microsoft Defender for Cloud. That is okay. So boot diagnostics, I'm not interested, so I'm going to disable it. So there are like a lot of options: enable auto shutdown, enable backup. Backup is nothing but backing up your virtual machine and your disk. So this will be used if you're going for a high resilient configuration, but this is being a demo. I'm just going with basic options. Next tags, review create. So validation is done. Okay, so I'm creating this virtual machine. Okay, just to reiterate, the steps we have done so far is I created a resource group, then created a virtual network. Within virtual network, I created a subnet. Then I created a new virtual machine, and I assigned that virtual machine to that virtual network. Okay. Okay. So now the pending steps are I have to create another virtual network, create another subnet, create another virtual machine, and assign it to that virtual network. And I'll have to establish connection between those two virtual networks, right? Okay. Okay. So now I'm going to create another virtual network. Create. So it's in the same resource group I'm going to create. I'm going to give this name as maybe IT-VNet VNet 1. So region is West US 3. Next IP addresses. So these steps we already know we followed. So I'm just going to follow the same steps. Okay, one thing to highlight here. When we are planning for doing network peering, right? Always make sure that the IP addresses you create or assign to each virtual networks, they shouldn't overlap. So you make sure that you create you assign your IP address accordingly. So if you remember, in my first virtual network, the IP address I had given is 10.0.0.0. So just to make sure that there is no overlapping, the IP address I'm going to assign here is 10.10.0.0/16. Okay, so I'm going to create a subnet. So in the subnet, I'm going to give the IP address again, same 10.10.0.0, but here is 24. Oh, sorry, I've given the IP address to the subnet name. Okay, so subnet again, I'm going to give a name here, VNet 1 hyphen SNet. Yeah, SNet hyphen. So this is also going to be for VM. So name is VM. Okay, so I copied that. I typed there. So I'm giving this here. So I'm adding this subnet. So virtual network and subnet IP addresses all given. I'm going with the default options for this. Review create. It's running validation. Okay, I'm creating this. So this virtual network also has got created. So the next step is to create another virtual machine and assign that virtual machine to be part of this second creator virtual network. Okay, so it is getting deployed. So we can go to with the next activity. It will happen in the backend. Okay, so now first I'm clicking on this virtual machines to see. Yeah, so this is my virtual machine I created in the first place and assigned it to the another virtual, initially created virtual network. Now I'm going to create another virtual network. Sorry, another virtual machine. Okay, so this virtual machine name I'm going to give it as dev-vm2. Okay, so here I have to select the resource group. I'm selecting existing resource group. As you see, automatically it has taken this VS2, VS3. Please always remember what happens when you create a resource, right? Virtual machine or any resource. When you select your resource group first, whatever the region this resource group is allocated or created with, the same region appears here also. Okay, but it is possible to have your resource group in one region and have your resource created in another region also. It is possible, but in this case I'm just going to go with the VS2, VS3 itself. So this is all we saw in our last step itself. So just to make it quick, I'm just going to create it. So username password. Okay, so next, disks, going with low configurable option. Next, okay, networking. So this is where we have to assign our newly created virtual network, right? So I'm just selecting this IT VNet 1. So it automatically shows the one and only subnet in the virtual network. So I'm selecting this. Again, I'm going with public IP. I explained this already, what it is. So this this RDP port, this is to enable remote desktop connectivity. Okay. Next, I'm going management. It is all fine. Root diagnostics, I'm disabling it. Advanced tags, review create. Okay. Create. So this virtual machine is getting created and deployed. So while this is happening, let me go to the other virtual machine and show you what's happening here. Okay, so if you see here, yeah. Okay, so if you see this virtual machine, you'll be able to find two addresses. One is called public IP address, another one is called private IP address. Okay, so I told you, right, if you enable that public IP address option while creating your virtual machine, there will be two addresses that gets generated. One is public, another one is private. This private is based on the subnet where we assign this, right? It is based on that. Okay, now you will understand what is the significance of this going for a virtual network. So what happens if this public IP address is created, right? Anyone from the external world can access this. So for that only we have the option of firewalls. Anyway, those we will see in the next session. So now let's stick to our objective. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to log into this virtual machine here first. Okay, let me refresh and see if the other virtual machine also has got created. Yeah, okay, the other one also has got created. Okay, but I think it is still getting deployed because it hasn't appeared yet. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, I told you, right, when we create two virtual networks, we use a concept called VNet peering to establish connectivity between these two virtual networks. Now, what we have done is we have created two virtual networks with respective virtual machines under that. That's it. We haven't established peering yet. Now, let me show you what happens if I try to connect from this virtual machine to this virtual machine. So let me first log into this virtual machine. So that can be done in multiple ways. You can use direct RDP connectivity or Bastion. This Bastion I'll explain later, but for now, let's stick to this RDP connectivity. Okay, so if you see here, you have this public IP address. This is the port number I said, right, for remote desktop connectivity 3389. So you have the option here to download RDP file. You have to click on this. It gets downloaded. Then we have to click on this. We can connect. So I have to change my user. Do you remember the user ID password we created, right? So I'm going to use that here. Okay. Right. So it is now logging into the virtual machine. Meanwhile, let me go to the virtual machines. Let me refresh this. Okay. So when we saw earlier, it was under deployment. So this public IP address didn't appear. So now if you see, it is appearing, right? Okay. Okay. So now what I'm trying to show here is what happens if I try to connect to this virtual machine from this virtual machine. Okay. Basically, I'm trying to test if the connectivity exists between the VM1, which is in the virtual network 1, to the other VM, which is in the other virtual network. Okay. So there are multiple ways to do this. Even you can try doing ping connectivity also, but ping is not even allowed in the real world because there will be firewall that will be blocking. So I'm just going for our remote desktop connection option here. Okay. So I'm going with the remote desktop connection. And here I'm going to give that IP address. Okay, let me copy that IP address. Okay, it is 10.10.0.4. So I'm giving it 10.10.0.4. So please remember what I'm doing. So I'm in my first virtual machine, which belongs to VNet 1. I mean, which belongs to first virtual network. I'm trying to log in to the second virtual machine using remote desktop connection. Okay, again, here also I have to give my username and password. So I'm selecting username here, vmadmin1. Sorry, vmadmin. I'm trying to connect. Okay, so it will not connect because there is no connectivity established as of now between those two virtual networks, right? So this will try to connect and it will error out. Okay, it says that it is not enabled or turned off. Okay, so this is expected only. So now I'm going to do the virtual network peering. Okay, so to do the peering, I have to go to my virtual networks. So I'm clicking on home and I'm going to the virtual networks. Okay, so this virtual network peering, right? It can be done between two virtual networks. And remember, this is bidirectional. When I say bidirectional, I'll show you. You'll understand. So you can select any one of the virtual network. So if you select the virtual network, you will find the option called peering. Click on this peering, add. So you have to give your peering name here. I'm going to give it as VNet. Okay, I'm going to give the name as HR VNet 1 to IT VNet 1. Okay, so traffic to remote virtual network, yes, we should allow it. So I'm going to block this. I'm saying that do not send traffic or do not allow access from any other virtual network. So I'm blocking this virtual network gateway. So you can go with none. So again here I'm going to give the connection as IT VNet IT VNet 1 to HR VNet 1. So this naming will be this naming standards. It's very important. Otherwise, you will end up creating with different naming standards, and it might be a bit confusing. So it is always good to, in the real time, it is always good to stick to a predefined naming standards. So it will be easier for the development team or any other team to work in this regard. Okay. So if you see here, it is asking which virtual network I have to select. So I have started this from HR, right? So I have to select the IT virtual network. See, if I select HR, what will happen? It will say that pairing is not possible within itself, right? So I have to select the other one, IT VNet one. Again, the same thing I have to follow here also. I'm allowing traffic here, but I'm blocking traffic from outside this virtual network. I'm adding it here. So the pairing is getting added. If you see here, there are like two things pairing, two pairing and a connectivity getting created, right? Because as I said, it is bidirectional. You are creating from HR VNet to IT VNet, as well as from IT VNet to HR VNet. So both the systems should communicate with each other, right? So it has to be enabled on both the virtual machines. Sorry, yes, on both the virtual networks. So that's what we just did it here. Now I'm going again into my virtual machine. So now let me try to connect now. Okay, okay, yeah. So last time, if you remember, it didn't recognize this. Let me show it from beginning. Okay, last time when we tried to do a remote desktop connectivity, if you remember, it had shown an error and it didn't connect. Now, if you see after doing the pairing, okay, so this is the IP address of uh, VM that belongs to the second virtual network. Okay, so I have given that IP address and I'm trying to connect. Now, after doing the pairing, it is able to recognize this network or this VM and it is asking for password, which I'm supplying. Okay, so yeah, so the connectivity has been established. Now, if you see, you have, okay, so I'm just trying to show here. So I'm able to connect from one VM to another VM. Basically, these two VMs are in different virtual networks. Okay, so in real time, how it will happen? You may have a backend databases running in one virtual machine, and you will have front-end applications in another virtual machine. So this backend and front-end will communicate from one machine to another machine. So these machines can be part of virtual networks. Just here for demo purpose, I'm logging in. I have logged into VM1, which belongs to the first virtual network, and I'm connecting to the second VM, which is part of the second virtual network. So this is how the pairing is done. Okay. So we have what we have seen. Just to recap. So we created two virtual networks. Each virtual network had its subnet and had its own VM. First, we tried to connect from VM to the second VM. The connection didn't happen because there was no pairing done. Now, after the pairing, the connectivity is successful. Okay. So that's what I wanted to cover in this session. Yeah. Yeah. So before just closing this, I want to highlight an information here. If you see here, these two virtual networks, they belong to the same location. So this is called local VNet pairing. Let's say if this virtual network is in West US 3 and this virtual network is in some other region, say East US, this is called global VNet pairing. Okay. So to start with, Microsoft had provided peering only for the resources or virtual networks within the same region. But later on, Microsoft added this also. So, and one good thing about this VNet peering is it doesn't use any internet or any other external connectivity. It uses Microsoft's native backbone network. Okay, so that the data transfer will be very fast and the latency is very low. So this peering is one of the very important feature that helps multiple teams to work collaboratively. Okay. Hope you enjoyed this session. Yeah. Thanks. Thank you.